Hello, everybody. Welcome to the TriStar Gym channel. Today's episode, we are doing together. We're going to be doing this together. Makhachev versus Volkanovski. The post-fight analysis. What an incredible fight. Guys, as usual, please give me a thumbs up to make sure the sound is loud and clear. I have so much to say about this fight. One of my favorite fights of all time. This one's going in the books as one of my favorite fights of all time. The hype was, well, for those of you who know fighting, you were really hyped up for this fight. It wasn't the one with the most media production behind it, no, but for the hardcore fans, you know this was a mega fight, an ultra mega fight for the books. Why? Questionably the two best pound for pound fighters. Who is it? Makhachev or Volkanovski? And they're in the same octagon at the same time in the same place, and we had them fight, and the fight didn't let down. The fight was incredible. There was a seesaw battle, controversy as usual, lots of controversy, and we're gonna go over all of it in this episode, and I think we're gonna have a good time as well. Yes, I believe Islam Makhachev won the fight. Yes, he won the rounds. We're gonna break it down. I'm gonna get in full details, but yes, did Islam Makhachev win the fight? Yes, I did a watch party during the fight, and before the judges announced it, I told you guys that I thought Makhachev won the fight. I can't see it any other way. And now we're going to get on the details on why. But before that, I want you guys to listen in on Volkanovski's corner after round 3. Okay, so this is after round 3. Round 1, Makhachev won. Round 2, very close round. I gave it to Makhachev. I'm going to explain why in a little bit. Round 3, a very good round for Volkanovski. A good round for Volkanovski. He gets back in his corner. And they tell him that round was better. Now he has a question for them. Volkanovski asks his coaches a question. Let's see if you guys can pick it up. Okay, I'm gonna try to get the sound right here, guys. This is not gonna be easy, but let's hear in the corner. Okay, let's hear what they say. Volkanovski just asked, how was that round? Okay. It was a better round. They said to him, it was a better round. Okay, so this is after round 3 now. We have 3 rounds in the books. He's sitting on the stool. Volkanovski asks his coach, how was that round? And his coach replies, it was a better round. Now listen to what Volk is about to say.
It's close, that's all right. Yeah. You know what I mean? What? I lost the first 2. Pardon? Did I lose the first 2? What?
That round was better, they said. That was our round. So round 3 was Volkanovski's round. I agree. I gave Volkanovski round 3. But then Volk replies, I lost the first 2. And then his coach says, pardon? And then Volk asks, did I lose the first 2? So at first, he asked, I lost the first 2. I think there was a question mark after that comment. So you can ask a question by stating a belief. Okay, did I lose the first 2? It wasn't. I lost. He said, I lost the first 2. I lost a question mark. I lost the first 2 question mark, and then he repeated himself. Did I lose the first 2? Okay. To me, he's telling us, look, he's really not confident in the first 2. Okay, I don't think it's 100% admission that he lost the first 2. No. But in his mind, he's not confident he won the first 2. Now, I'll tell you guys why he didn't win round 2. Round 1, I think we all agree Makhachev won. He took his back. He took him down. He landed the harder shots in round 2. He stumbled Volkanovski in round 1. Okay. Round 2 is the hard one to call, guys. Round 2 is the controversial round. Let me tell you guys what happened in round 2. Okay, let me go back to round 2. At one point in round 2, Volkanovski blitzes Makhachev. He blitzes Makhachev. Makhachev level changes to shoot, and when he does so, the crowd goes wild. The crowd goes wild. It looked like Volkanovski knocked him down. Volkanovski did not knock down. Rewatch it, okay? Watch the replay. The crowd had so much to do with this fight. The crowd was booing everything Makhachev did, and they were cheering everything Volkanovski did. Absolutely everything. Listen to this walk-in, okay? Listen to this walk-in. Makhachev is about to walk in. Listen to the boos. I don't know. I don't know if the sound is coming out right, but it's bad. They booed him bad. Makhachev came out. They booed him really, really bad. In round 2, when Volkanovski blitzed Islam Makhachev and Makhachev went for a level change, he stumbled. He didn't get hit by any punches. He missed his shot, and the crowd went wild. So people watching it on TV, it happened so fast. You see a guy drop, a crowd yell. It makes you think, oh, Volkanovski knocked him down. He didn't, guys. Rewatch the fight. Watch it in slow motion. They show it to you after round 2. They show you what happened in round 2. So after round 2, when the guys are sitting on the stool, you have it on the Jumbotron. They put the replay. The punch doesn't make contact. Volkanovski's punch does not make contact. The hardest shot in round 2 was landed by Islam Makhachev. Volkanovski was a little bit busier. Islam landed a hard punch that stunned Volkanovski. He landed the better shot, and he had a very partial takedown. Now, not much happened in round 2. It was very even. But I gave it to Islam Makhachev because he landed a very hard left hand. He countered beautifully. He countered Volkanovski beautifully, and he had a bit of a partial takedown, which I didn't give him much points for, but he landed the best strike of the round. It was a close round, but in my opinion, it went to Islam Makhachev. So we have round 2 for Makhachev, round 1 and 2 for Makhachev, round 3 for Volkanovski. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. Round 3, guys, forgive me. I'm just getting over a cold. This is my tail end of the cold. Forgive me for my voice. Round 4, nobody's going to argue, guys. Please don't tell me you think that those punches Volkanovski was throwing were anything, okay? He was just doing that to rile up the crowd. Islam Makhachev was on the back for the long majority of the round. It was a dominant round for Makhachev. Now, I'm not saying it's a 10-8 round, but it's definitely a dominant round for Makhachev, okay? Because when you're on the back for the entire round, you're basically saying, look, I'm in complete control of this fight. Round 5 goes to Volk. We can't argue. We cannot argue. So that leaves you, at best, 3-2 for Makhachev. Now, I even personally, when I was watching it live, I gave round 3 a draw. So I don't want to say round 3 was a total blowout, but now I rewatched it. I can see why people saying Volk won it. Okay, I rewatched it. Okay, so at best we have a 3-2 for Islam Makhachev. Now here's what I think most people are hung up on. Makhachev looked human. He looked like he had flaws. He didn't finish strong. Volkanovski was, if he had a 6th round, might have, dominated round 6. That is true. That is all true. But it's a 5-round fight. And here's the thing that I overlooked in my pre-fight analysis. I did mention it, but I didn't emphasize it enough because I didn't think it was going to be such a problem. Volkanovski has a lot more 5-round experience than Makhachev. Makhachev has never done a 5th round, and he didn't do a good job in round 5. Where Volkanovski has had multiple 5-round fights that have gone the distance with elite fighters. Just case in point, Max Holloway. He did 3 5-rounders with Max Holloway, one of the toughest 5-round fighters ever in terms of pace and pressure. So Volk is very acclimated to the 5th round pressure, the volume needed in round 5. Islam was not. Something happened in the 5th round that nobody's talking about. Islam Makhachev was doing really good in the early part of the 5th round. Very good. He grabbed Volkanovski in a body lock. And to my surprise, Volkanovski countered with a Yoko Sumigeshi, a butterfly hook, which I'm going to credit Craig Jones for. If he didn't have that hook, that jiu-jitsu counter, round 5 would have went to Islam Makhachev easily. Let me tell you why, okay? In freestyle wrestling, you cannot put your back to the floor. It's not like collegiate wrestling. In American wrestling, you can expose your back to the floor. Not in freestyle. In freestyle, if you do that, you lose points. The other guy scores points on you. He scores exposure points. Makhachev is not used to seeing guys do this kind of wrestling counter. Guys, watch round 5. At one point, Volkanovski blitzes Islam Makhachev. Makhachev body locks him, brings him down, an easy takedown. Like it's just everything. He's got everything he needs to bring him down. And then Volkanovski uses a beautiful jiu-jitsu maneuver. He uses a butterfly hook in a Yoko, like a backside butterfly hook. It's called a Yoko Sumigeshi. And he elevates Islam Makhachev. He times it beautiful. He times it beautifully. off balances him, breaks the takedown. He was deep in the takedown. It's like watching a gazelle fully locked into a crocodile's mouth, and somehow the gazelle escapes. A baby gazelle somehow, some way got out. I bet you Islam Makhachev is not really aware of these kind of counters because he's so heavy in freestyle wrestling that they don't have these kind of counters. They don't do this kind of behavior because it will cost them points in their style. He flipped it around, and that took out the steam from Islam Makhachev. Makhachev shoots another takedown later in the round and then pulls guard. That's what nobody noticed. Did you guys notice that Islam Makhachev pulled guard? He shot, failed shot, and then he rolled to his back in the last minute of the fight. Now, he had gotten hit before that, but I don't think he was too discombobulated. I think it was just him wanting to just get the fight to the ground any which way. He didn't want to attempt another takedown, which shows me that he has a lot to improve in terms of 5 rounds, in terms of doing 5 rounds. Now, he's had a lot of early finishes. The furthest he's ever gone is round 4. I think now he's going to grow a lot from this 5-round experience. Having a hard 5 round, I think is going to teach him a lot. He's going to go back to the drawing board. He's going to adjust the way he's training. The next time these two meet, and I think they probably will meet again. It's possible. It's not impossible. It's possible. Very possible. I think Islam is going to have grown a lot, okay? Because I think he took so much from this. Learning to fight a 5 hard round fight is not an easy thing, and I think we see why. Because so many things can happen in round 5, and Volkanovski had that 5-round experience. He had the edge in that 5-round experience. In my estimation, guys, the only way I could see it is Islam won at least 3 rounds out of 5. I can't see how Volkanovski could have taken 3 rounds. I just don't see it. With that said, guys, I want to hear what you guys have to say about this fight. What other insights did you guys get when watching this fight? I believe Islam had, if Islam had more time to rehydrate, he would have been much stronger. That's from Jerry Bergen. You know, that's interesting because they asked Volkanovski in the corner. I think it was after round 2. His coach asked him, is he strong? And Volkanovski said, no, he's not strong. I think you're right. I'll tell you something. Fighting in Australia is not an easy thing to do because your whole time, your whole like rhythm, your circadian rhythm is all thrown out of whack. Like I've been to Australia, we've competed in Australia. It's tough. Why? Because you're competing at like 2 in the afternoon. It's it's nighttime here, it's daytime there. You're on the other side of the planet. Okay, now I don't know how hard it is for him from Russia, but it's just the other side of the planet. Islam has a hard weight cut. He's in a foreign land. Your diet's not always the same. The foods are not all the same. There's a lot of acclimation. I don't know how early he went to Australia because I would have went a month earlier. If it was a title fight, I think I would go 1 month before, which I don't think he did. But that can heavily affect your cardiovascular ability. I came in neutral and ended up being a fan of Volk, not Islam. That's from Barry Whittle. Listen, I'm a fan of both of them. I love how both of them handled the night. Okay, but first of all, you could tell you gotta give Islam Makhachev some slack because he obviously is not fluent in English. Okay, he was trying to compliment Alexander Volkanovski. He said thank you to Alexander Volkanovski several times on the mic. The crowd was booing him as he was being strapped with his title, and you could see Volkanovski in the background telling the crowd, "Hey, calm it down. Like, don't boo him." And then Volkanovski was complimentary. Islam Makhachev was complimentary. He was like, I want a real fighter. This guy's a real fighter. He's great. He's a great fighter. He pushed me. I grew. Who do you want to fight next? I want a real fighter. I want a real challenge. Like, I have much to improve. These guys are great, man. They're stand-up human beings. After the fight, they hugged, they embraced, they congratulated each other. 2 guys from different parts of the world, different religions, different cultures, different lifestyles, different worldviews, but they got along. They set aside their differences. They competed against one another, and they showed a great example. I love to see athletes like this. Honestly, I find it very inspiring. Very, very inspiring. I have to rewatch all of Volk's fights again, guys. I watch his fights all the time. He's a phenomenal fighter. This guy's going to go down, of course, as a Hall of Famer, but I think he has so much still to do in the octagon. He's going to have so many more incredible fights. Can you steelman the case for Volk remaining pound for pound number one? That's from Jurash Prostan. Okay, well, I could, because I'll tell you something, Jurash. Volk had to go up in weight. He had to go up in weight. The fact that the fight is controversial, because, guys, at this level, 10 pounds is a huge amount. 10 pounds is a huge amount. Going from 145 to 155 is a huge amount. And the fact that he made the fight controversial, if you flip the tables, if Volkanovski had a 10-pound advantage on Islam Makhachev, you could say, look, and not only would it be in Volk's favor, but Volk should, if you do the math, he should have such a major advantage that he easily takes an extra round away from Makhachev. Okay, now I don't really believe that. You're asking me to make a steel man. That's my steel man, but because the thing is, if you're bigger, you're also a little slower in terms of how often guys, if you ever sparred with a lighter fighter, they move around a lot more. And George used to complain that to me all the time. I used to put him with lighter weights, and he's like, oh, they get me tired. I said, that's the whole point. They make you tired. Why? Because the lighter the weight class, the more active they are, the less inertia they have to overcome. Okay, now I don't want to get into what inertia is, but the less energy it takes to move their body, to get their body going. So if you look at Muhammad Ali used to do 6 rounds with lighter fighters and then 6 rounds with heavyweights. He wouldn't do 12 rounds with a heavyweight. He was very, very smart. Muhammad Ali's trainers was very, very smart. He said, look, we do 6 rounds with a lightweight fighter. Why? Because the lightweights move around a lot more. So what Muhammad Ali developed, he learned to develop more movement, constant movement. If you guys don't know the history of Muhammad Ali, he was the first heavyweight to fight like a lightweight. He was the first guy to jump around on his toes, move around. Back then, the mentality in boxing was that if you're a heavyweight and you bounce up and down on your toes, you're going to get tired. So no heavyweight was doing that. They would say it's a bad strategy for a heavyweight. Muhammad Ali went against the conventional wisdom of boxing at that time. He went totally against the grain. In conventional boxing, they tell you, never circle towards the power side. Ali only circled towards the power side. Ali circled 99% of the time towards the power side. They say in the book of boxing, they say you have to go to the body to open up the head. Muhammad Ali never threw body shots. Less than 5% of his punches were body shots. The vast majority of his punches were head shots. In boxing, they tell you never never lay against the ropes. He beat George Foreman by laying on the ropes. He broke every rule in the book. Okay, now just to touch on another note real quick. I'm not going to go off on a tangent, but when you master an art, whatever it may be, when you master a science, now it's time to break all the rules. Okay, once you get your black belt, once you get your PhD, now it's time to break the mold. You know what we taught you? Yeah, forget all of it. Wipe it all down, break it all down, think outside the box, build us a new bridge, do something creative. We showed you what we know. Now you go out there and you pioneer a new way of thinking. Okay, I'm not going to get into Einstein, but Einstein, that's exactly what he did. He learned everything about Newton, and he said, no, you know what? Newton is wrong about certain things. Okay, certain things, not everything, but certain things. Okay, we're not going to get into that, but time. And Newton told us, look, the arrow of time, it goes in one direction. That's constant. He flipped that on its head. Once you master a science, once you master a martial art, do you think Roy Jones, they taught him to fight with his hands down and put your hands behind your back? No way. He was taught like everybody else, fight with your hands up, tuck your chin, keep your feet like this. He was taught all the rules, but as he mastered boxing, he realized, hey, I don't need any of these rules. I'll make up my own rules now. I know how to fight. He reached that level. Islam Makhachev and Volkanovski, they're not there yet. They're not at that Muhammad Ali level where you do everything that everybody warned you not to do. They're not at that level yet. You can see they're still growing in their style. Because that's how high of a level Muhammad Ali was. That's how high a level Muhammad Ali was. Every boxing scholar was criticizing him in his time. Same thing with Mike Tyson. If you watch classic Mike Tyson fights, you'll catch certain commentators saying, oh, look, what he's doing with his leg is wrong. Because Mike Tyson would shift. He would switch stances. And in boxing, that was considered wrong at the time. Okay, if you go in the 1920s, they used to shift. Okay, they used to fight with smaller gloves, and it was horsehair, very stiff gloves. Shifting was an advantage, considered to be an advantage. And then later, as the sport modernized, it was considered to be wrong. Tyson, a boxing scholar who used to watch old school fights, used to copy the old school fighters. He brought it back. He brought back the lost art of shifting, etc. All this to say that when you reach that level, you do things your way. You find your way to do things. And nobody can tell you it's wrong because you're at the highest level of that art. You're at the there's nobody. People can disagree with you, you can have difference of opinion, but you can't be wrong because you reach that level of authority. Okay, guys, with that said, I think I missed another super chat. Salam, coach. Do you think any other fighter in 155 has the explosiveness and cardio combination that can imitate Volk's style of wrestling defense? That's from Gibbs Boson. Yes. I think Dariush is up next. I think Dariush can use that fight as a blueprint to see how he can use his style to kind of mimic what's certain things that Volkanovski did. Dariush is a very good scrambler, leg locker. We saw in his last fight, he did a great job scrambling on the ground, keeping the fight like in the quasi wrestling jiu-jitsu realm. He was kind of blending the two, and he kind of developed a what we call sometimes a funk style. Okay, a funk style is like when you're doing a lot of unorthodox techniques. Okay, which is a style I love, by the way. Funk is it's a style I absolutely love. Why? Because especially if you're a leg locker, you're diving on ankles, etc. It's very scary to wrestlers. So I think Dariush is a very, very dangerous threat to Islam Makhachev, especially now because we know so much more about Islam Makhachev. We know so much more about Islam Makhachev. I think Islam Makhachev he's so great, but he also made so many mistakes. I would love to work. I would absolutely love to work with him because he has so many GSP type qualities. And I think I could polish him up very quickly. But he made so many mistakes that could have been easily wiped off the table, and it could have been a dominant win. It could have been a very dominant win. It could have been a win that was like stellar, pristine, and leaving everybody wondering who on earth could even challenge this man. It wasn't a performance like that, and it's a shame that it wasn't because he has so much of the abilities to do it. The truth of the matter is, Islam Makhachev got into a brawl. He got into a fight. He got into a back and forth that could have been easily avoided if certain key elements were in place, and it could have been just a wipeout, a complete domination. This is how I see it. Now, could somebody do that with Volk? I don't know. I don't think Volk has enough. And the fact that he's 10 pounds lighter, generally, like by and large, he's a smaller weight class. It's going to be very hard to have a stellar win like that. It's going to be very, very difficult. Now, I want to congratulate Volk on how amazing he did. Absolutely. But Islam being bigger, more seasoned in wrestling. I know people are going to talk about the reach, but the fact that Islam was standing tall, it doesn't matter who has the higher reach. When you're standing tall the way Islam was, the shorter man is working from a lower center of gravity. It's a huge mistake. Every time you trade, you're taking a massive risk. Islam Makhachev's stance was fundamentally incorrect. Watch George St. Pierre versus Matt Serra. Their first fight, George is standing tall. The second fight, we corrected that. He was standing at eye level. And Serra never got close to hurting George in the second fight. Never got close. There was a fundamental error in their first matchup. We fixed it. We corrected it. The second matchup was a complete domination. The same two guys. Very little difference in experience. They fought maybe, I think it was a year and a half later. It was adjustments. And Islam Makhachev fought hard. He fought with a lot of grit. He fought with a lot of passion. That's what pulled him through. But mechanically, logistically, he made a lot of errors. Okay, guys. I'm only doing questions, please, on the fight. In my opinion, Islam's MMA grappling doesn't have Khabib's chain wrestling pressure, knee control. I doubt Volk could be able to reverse Khabib consistently. Agree? That's from Fakao. I would agree. Look, Khabib would have done a lot better. Guys, I was asked before the fight, do you think Islam's at the level of Khabib? I said no. I think he's on that track. I think he's great. He has a lot in common with Khabib, but Khabib just has more of everything. Everything Islam does, Khabib can do, but just more. More intensely at a higher level, a higher pace. Could Volk get out from under Khabib? Yes, but the chain wrestling would have been more aggressive from Khabib. The chain wrestling, the connections, you're right. I totally agree with you. The ground and pound would have been vicious, where Makhachev snuck out to the back, which, by the way, I didn't like the way he did the back take. If you see in round one, he takes the back. I didn't like the way he did it. It was a very risky maneuver. He tried it again in round 3 and it backfired. He tried the same takedown in round 3 and it backfired. Those kind of techniques, they work 50% of the time. It's not a reliable technique. Okay, it's not a reliable technique. I'm not saying that Volk is easy to take down. It's just a risky way to expose yourself and put yourself on the bottom. I don't think Khabib does those kind of risky takedowns. Watch round 1 again. How Islam takes the back. He scrambles to the back. Okay, it's just a really risky way. You're throwing yourself underneath the guy. Not my favorite thing to do. I think Khabib's attack selection of attacks is better, guys. It's not all jiu-jitsu techniques are the same. Think about it like this, okay? Not all wrestling techniques, not all martial arts techniques are the same. This is how I categorize things. If a move will work in gi and no gi, if a move will work gi and no gi, and it will work in MMA, and it will work in a street altercation, and it works on every type of weight class, that's an A++ technique. That technique, if there's techniques out there that do that, which there are, and there are not that many, you got to make sure you know those. Those have to be in our arsenal. That's an A++ technique. Now take, for instance, anaconda choke, okay? Does that work on bigger guys? No. Okay, so it can't be. How many times do you see a smaller guy consistently choke out trained heavier weight in a heavier weight class trained opponents? Okay, don't go choke a total beginner. That doesn't impress me. Can you anaconda choke? Can you show me an international competition, people using the anaconda choke on black belts that are heavier than them? No. The answer is a resounding no. Do we see it with leg locks? Yes. The answer is a resounding yes. We see smaller guys consistently leg lock heavier opponents at international level. We see it with guillotine. We see it with rear naked choke. So those submissions have to be given a priority. I'll even say that sometimes we see it with armbar. However, you'll very, very, very rarely ever see a smaller black belt kimura a bigger black belt at international level. Very rarely. So we cannot say that kimura is an A++ move. I think kimura is a B++ move. It's a great move. I have it in my arsenal. It's important because if I'm fighting a guy who's my size, I now have an extra weapon I can use. Now, would I try to kimura George St. Pierre? No, personally, I've never ever kimura George St. Pierre. I've never even gotten close to taking his arm and putting it behind his back and tapping him out with a kimura. It's an insane mission. If you ask me to do that, I'll tell you, look, I will need literally 1,000 tries. I'll need to try literally 1,000 times and maybe I'll get one. It is not an A++ technique. Now, if you tell me, hey, can you leg lock this black belt here? I'll tell you, yeah, because if I get on his foot and it's just me and his ankle, I'll bend that ankle and there's nothing you can do about it. But bending that strong, athletic, muscular arm, very difficult. If I can get on your neck, yes, it's very dangerous. Guys, a smaller guy, a smaller black belt can guillotine a bigger, stronger black belt. Yes, absolutely. Can you kimura him? Yes, it can happen, but it doesn't happen reliably. So we have to categorize our techniques. We have to categorize them. And the same goes with sweeps. Show me a sweep. The first thing I ask myself, is this going to work in gi and no gi? Would this work in MMA? Would this work in altercation, street altercation? Would this work against a bigger trained opponent? If the answer is yes, I'm drilling that thing all day long. I put it in the super duper ultra important pile. If the answer is no, I still drill it. It's still in the category of maneuvers that I'm going to train. Why? Let me tell you why. I once had a discussion with Marcelo Garcia, one of the greatest grapplers of all time. And he was telling me, look, he doesn't do certain maneuvers because they don't work on everybody. And he was telling me that he only does maneuvers. He only teaches his students maneuvers that work all the time consistently. Now, I thought he was wrong back then, and I still think he's wrong. And the reason why, and I say this all due respect, because he's one of the greatest of all time. If I'm fighting somebody my size, kimura will work. Why would you take that weapon away from me? Now, he would tell you, look, I use it as a grip, but not as a finish. But I can finish the Kimura on a guy my size. Yeah, then, yes, absolutely. What I'm trying to tell you is, in freestyle wrestling, at the highest level, they don't have that attitude. They don't have the attitude that if a move doesn't work on heavier weights, I'm going to drop that move. No. They don't think like Marcelo Garcia. They want to win their category. They're not trying to win the absolutes. See, Marcelo had the idea, well, look, I have to win the absolutes. Okay, when we go to the absolutes, we'll change our formula. We know that Kimura doesn't work on a guy 50 pounds heavier than us. We know that. We can adjust our game plan when the circumstances change. But when I'm fighting a guy my size in my division, Kimura can be a very, very key option in a very, very heated exchange, and it can make a huge difference. I don't know. I hope you guys are understanding what I'm saying. But basically, when you fight somebody your size, you have more option. You have more options. You have more paths to victory. You have more ways to confuse your opponent. Whereas when you eliminate too many maneuvers, you find yourself bottlenecked. You find yourself becoming obvious to your opponents. Your opponents now know what you're going to do. You start becoming a bit of a one-trick pony. Over time, they start to see your style is easy to understand, easy to avoid, easy to predict. Okay, so when you fight in the heavyweights, when you change weight class, when you go in the absolute division, when you're fighting somebody bigger than you that's also trained, you have to think your strategy through. You're not going to just try to fight a bigger guy like you would fight a smaller guy. Now, one maneuver I like on bigger opponents is the Ashi slide. Now, would I do Ashi slide on guys in my weight size? Not necessarily. But when they're super tall, super big, I find it so easy for me to slide right away into a leg lock, etc., using different attacks. Okay, so I really believe strategy is huge. All this to say, Volkanovski's strategy was sound. He was brilliant, guys. His wrestling, his counters, especially in round 5, guys. And I want to credit Craig Jones. Guys, I want to credit Craig Jones. Okay, the B team mastermind, let's call it. He trained Volkanovski. I guarantee you it's him. I guarantee you. Like, I can't imagine any other coach adding this to somebody's game, okay? He taught him the Yoko Sumigeshi, the butterfly hook off a wrap. I don't think I've ever seen it used in UFC. It's a maneuver I teach all the time. I love it. I absolutely adore it. I learned it from John Denahar. He absolutely loves it. It's a beautiful maneuver. It's a matter of time before the next generation start to copy him. But I think it's the first time we've ever seen it in the octagon. In a championship fight that made such a massive difference. Because if you watched the fight, round 5, Volkanovski had to go after it. He had to go after it, and he did. He rushed Islam Makhachev. Makhachev caught a full body lock. Now, Makhachev is a jiu-jitsu, judo, and wrestling master with a full body lock. Guys, this guy, he knows his judo just as good as he knows his wrestling. It's an easy takedown. They're headed down towards the ground. And let me tell you something. When you got a body lock like that, it's tough to get out. It's very tough. Guess what? Volkanovski used a precise technique to turn the tables on a bigger, stronger, highly seasoned grappler / wrestler. Flipped him over, twisted and turned into a hip heist, and got out and changed the momentum of the fight. You could see Islam Makhachev was mentally like exhausted. He's like, I had him fully in my grasp. We were headed down towards the ground. I was in a full body lock. Guys, if that body lock wasn't countered immediately, it would have been an easy pin and a 5-round domination. A 5th-round domination. He would have dominated the 5th round. It would have been a back take or a pin, and Volkanovski would have likely stayed on the ground. Volkanovski saw a window of opportunity, and let me tell you something. The window was small to do Yoko Sumigeshi, to do that hip heist, that butterfly sweep. It's a very, very small window. Go watch round 5 again. That was one of the most brilliant key maneuvers ever used in any world championship fight. Because then there would have been no controversy. Islam would have cemented round 5. He would have cemented it with one takedown. He wouldn't have given a chance for Volkanovski to get up. Watch all of Volkanovski's get-ups. They were all use of the cage. He made use of the cage. In round 4, when he got taken down, he was not on the cage. He tried to crawl his way to his cage, and he got his back taken. Every other get-up, he used the cage to get up. In round 5, he was getting taken down in near center of the octagon. He would have got totally pinned. No, the Yoko Sumigeshi came to his aid, and I guarantee you it was Craig Jones that taught it to him. I guarantee it. Volk never stops, which makes him dangerous. I picked him. That's from Donnie. Yes, you're right. He's a perpetual motion machine. Not an easy guy to deal with. He's constantly moving. He hits often, and he hits hard. All right, guys. Let me see. Did I miss a super chat? No, I think we are good. Out of interest, how did you score the fight? That's from Ibrahim. Round 1, Makhachev. Round 2, Makhachev. Round 3, I gave it a draw, but after rewatching it, I gave it to Volk. Round 4, Makhachev. Round 5, Volk. Okay. So that's how I officially scored it, 3-2. Coach, you misspelled Alexander. Yes, that's right. That's the French spelling. I'll fix that later. In French, it's Alexandre. My bad. Force of habit, guys. My apologies. Islam won the contest. Volk won the fight. That's from Hermetism. Look, I don't agree. Okay, I don't agree. Islam won the fight. That's how they scored. That's how they. That's exactly what they told him. They want him to do. If you win 3 out of 5 rounds, we're gonna give you the belt. That's what he did. That was the game plan. That's the mission. That's the goal. That's what both fighters are trying to do. I blame the scoring system. I would tell you guys, the whole scoring system is no good. We need to get rid of the scoring system. We need to do one simple thing. Treat the fight as one round. That's what they did in Pride. And we had the most exciting fights and an atmosphere on fight night that has never been replicated. It has not been replicated. Pride was a very special time. Now, look, I love UFC and I love Pride. And if I had to choose one, I would say UFC. UFC put on the better fights. However, Pride had some very good elements to it. For those of you who didn't grow up watching Pride, you have to go back and watch certain epic nights of Pride fighting. Epic nights. It was magical. There was something magical in the air. And what was so magical about Pride? They used to count the entire fight as one round. No adding up, no mathematics to do at the end of the night, no try to remember what happened. No. Watch the fight. Yes, we're going to have rounds. We're going to give the fighters a break. You know, they have a little break, a minute break between rounds. And then we start them back up on their feet, etc. But then at the end, just kind of lump it all together. What happened in the fight? Just count it as one round. Let me tell you what happens. If the fighter wins 2 rounds, the first 2 rounds, and it's counted, it's 10-point must, like the system we have today in the UFC, he's probably going to fight very differently in round 3. He's going to play it conservative. But not in Pride. In the Pride rules, even if you won the first 2 rounds, it didn't matter. You still have to fight hard. Why? Because if the guy beats you in round 3, people might say, hey, what he did in round 3 trumps everything you did earlier on. There's no 10-point must system. There's no way to quantify all these actions you guys are doing in the fight. It's the most absurd thing, trying to count the punches and say, look, this guy landed 3 punches more than this guy, so therefore he won. You cannot quantify damage this way. You cannot quantify, and you can't go by cuts and bruises either, because if you punch somebody on the chin and knock them out cold, the guy wakes up and he doesn't have a single blemish on his face. Why? You hit him on the exact spot. If you hit the guy along the chin, it's even better. If you hit him on the jaw, it's second best. The chin has more leverage. If you hit a guy on the chin, if you hit him where you're supposed to, there is no black eye damage. Now, if you hit me here, you give me a black eye, and I hit you on the chin, I actually rattled your brain more than you did me, if all other things be the same. So you can't go by cosmetics. You can't go by look. People like to go, oh, look by look. Oh, he has a black eye. He has a bloody nose. So what? So what? When I have a black eye, that means you missed. That's another way to look at it. Of course, it's also very damaging to punch somebody in orbital, but you have to hit really, really hard to knock somebody out in the orbital. If you hit him in the chin, though, you don't need to hit as hard to knock him out. You have more leverage at the chin, because what we're trying to do is whip the head back and forth to rattle the brain. In Pride, they used to count the whole fight, all the rounds, as one round. It was brilliant because you never knew where you were in the fight. You didn't have to count, hey, am I up 3 rounds? Is it 1-1? Like, you didn't have to count anything. And the other brilliant thing they did is the first round was 10 minutes. So you had a lot more time to develop the grappling. It was a very magical time. Guys, I'm telling you, it was a very, very electric rule scheme and judging. It was, look, they had their robberies, guys. Japan has their own politics. That's a whole other world of politics. Okay, I don't want to get into that. I'm not trying to say that Pride was perfect, because there were robberies. There were. If you were a famous pro wrestler, man, you had a huge chance to win if the other guy didn't finish you. That's another set of politics. I'm not going to open up that can of worms. However, we still had a lot of fair fights, and there was something magical about that rule set. The fact that it's just being, even if you were losing 99% of the fight, you could still win if you do more damage in that last minute than the guy did in the entire fight. Now, what if we looked at Makhachev versus Volkanovski as one round? Count the whole thing as one round. Now it's a very different result. But it's not fair to Makhachev, because he would have fought differently if you told him that rule set beforehand. Don't forget, we have to judge them on the rule set that they were given. They're fighting and they're making decisions by what rules they were given. You cannot blame the athlete. You always have to blame the rule set. The athletes will always try to use the rule sets to their advantage. The smart fighters will anyway. All right, guys, we have another super chat. Salam, coach. Should Islam have engaged more with level changes instead of countering? That's from Abdul A. Well, let me tell you something, Abdul. The best shots he landed were counters. In round 2, he saved round 2 with a massive counter. Volk threw a big right hand. Islam slipped it and countered him with a left that shook. It shook Volk down to one knee. We didn't talk about this earlier. Volk touched his knee down to the ground. Let me just talk about something really, really important here, okay? In the world of boxing, they're always trying to decide. You have to differentiate between a slip and a knockdown. Now, most of the time, okay, because don't forget, two boxers, when they fight, they sign a contract, they agree on the rules, and you can have certain flexibility in the rules. If I throw a punch and it connects to your body, and I'm talking about boxing now, not MMA, and any part of your body touches the ground other than the soles of your feet, it's a knockdown. I'm going to say that again, okay? If I throw a punch and it grazes your shoulder and your knee touches the ground, that's a knockdown. They're not going to rule it a slip. Now, if I throw a punch and you block it, or I miss you completely, and you slip and your hand touches the ground or your knee touches the ground, that's a slip. But sometimes we can argue whether, was that a knockdown? Was that a slip? Was that a knockdown? Was that a slip? It's a very difficult thing to decide. Sometimes somebody's slipping, but they got hit at the same time. And was it a slip? Was it a knockdown? Like, for instance, in round 2, when Volkanovski rushes Islam Makhachev, Islam level changes for a shot at the same time. And when he does so, he kind of slipped. He slipped before Volkanovski ever made any contact. Actually, if you watch the replay, Volkanovski doesn't make any contact at all. There's actually no punches that touch Islam Makhachev's body. However, if you guys don't know this, between the canvas and the cage, there's a gap. Okay, there's a gap. And when you're sparring and wrestling, I spar in a cage all the time, guys. Your foot gets caught in that gap. I've seen it a million times in professional fighting, in the gym every day. I'm literally in that cage every single day. There's a little gap between the fence and the canvas. Islam Makhachev's foot slips in that gap. He stumbles. He shoots. It was a bad shot. The crowd goes wild. It looks like Volk knocked him down, but he didn't. The actual knockdown that happened in round 2 was Islam Makhachev connecting with a left hand that dropped Volk. It dropped Volk down to one knee. Now, Volk barely touched the ground, but he still touched the ground. Now, in boxing, that would be a knockdown. In MMA, there's no such rule. Okay, so I don't want to conflate the two. I'm just telling you, like, in boxing, like, they have to go in there with a scalpel on what a knockdown is, because every knockdown results in a point. If me and you are fighting and I knock you down, and I win that round, it's a 10-8 for me, because I get a point for that knockdown. Okay, so it's not the same rules in the MMA. What I'm trying to tell you is it's really hard to differentiate sometimes between a knockdown and a slip. And two world-class martial artists can watch the same slip/knockdown and disagree on whether it was a slip or a knockdown. How I like to decide is to see how the fighter reacts. Did Did he slip or did he get knocked down? Well, look, is he discombobulated? Is he losing his balance? Is he wrestling really sloppy? Is he like, being inactive? Is he like, does he seem like his eyes are out of focus? Or does he keep chain wrestling and his energy is high and he's performing like he naturally would? I like to look at the aftermath. Now, Volk, when he got hit with that left hand in round 2, he stumbled, he backed up, he took 3-4 good giant steps. Exactly what a guy does when he needs an extra few seconds to regain his bearings. Okay, when you get hit hard, you get that double vision, you don't know where you are, you take 3-4 steps, it comes back, and you're back in the game. That's what I saw. Volk got caught with a big left hand, so countering for Islam Makhachev actually worked really well. Now, you're asking me, what should he have done? I would tell you this, okay? Notice in the fight, Islam Makhachev, when Volk would blitz him, he would grab Volk in a Muay Thai plum. Every time he did it, it scored beautifully. That's what he needed to do. Keep Volk at a distance, and when Volk blitzes you, go into the Thai plum. Every time he did it, it worked beautifully. He threw knees to the body. What he didn't do is he didn't elbow off a plum. He should have done knee, elbow, knee, elbow. If he did it more in the fight, if he did it from bell to bell, if he did it from the beginning all the way to round 5, he would have done a lot better. It would have looked a lot cleaner. Now, there's other things I would have done with him, but I can't explain it now because it would be too complicated and it would be a huge tangent. But I'll tell you something you can go visually review. Watch that fight again. Every time he went into the Muay Thai plum, for those who don't know what the Muay Thai plum is, it's when you clinch somebody behind the neck. You put your 2 hands behind their neck and you kind of pull their head down and you're throwing knees. Okay, you've all seen it. It's a famous Muay Thai maneuver. It's classic Muay Thai maneuver. You trap the guy from behind his head and you knee him in the face, you knee him in the body. What Makhachev didn't do is he didn't throw knees to the face. There are techniques that are very powerful for throwing knees to the face, and he didn't elbow off the plum. If he did so, it could have been a very, very different game. So if you look at, I think it was round 4, Makhachev caught Volkanovski in a plum. And guys, when you plum, it's usually the taller fighter catching the shorter fighter in a plum. Why? Because as the shorter fighter closes the distance to punch the taller fighter, he runs into a catch-22. That plum now doesn't allow him to punch because it can stuff heavily. It can heavily stuff your punching ability because somebody's pulling your head down. So as you're punching, you have these razor sharp knees coming up towards your head. Now, one of the best Thai clinchers or plum clinchers ever in MMA in his prime was Vanderlei Silva. Okay, go back to the classic days of shoot boxing. Famous combination. They would throw a 1-2, catch you in a plum, knee. Okay, they were famous for it. That formula could have worked really, really well for Islam Makhachev. Watch every single time he caught Volkanovski in a plum, he scored. And he stuffed Volkanovski's punches, and Volkanovski adopted defensive postures. Now, in one instance, Volkanovski blocked the hip and was kind of grappling back. What Islam Makhachev needed to do was no longer knee, but elbow. Because when they block your knees by putting their hand on your hip, you're supposed to elbow. And he didn't do it, okay? Because he probably doesn't know. He doesn't know the counter to the Volkanovski's actions. These can be easily corrected in the practice room. So if you're asking me what I would have changed with Makhachev in the fight live that night, I would have told him to go to the plum more often, right away. Even when Volk had Islam on the cage, Islam kind of went for a rake or a maneuver in wrestling where you can turn it into a plum and you can see Volk disengage. Volk wanted nothing to do with the plum. Because every time he got caught in the plum, he can't punch and he's getting kneed. So it could have made a massive difference in the fight. Massive. Okay, here. If you're in a dominant position, but the opponent is more effective in delivering damage, the round should be awarded to the more aggressive fighter. That's from Cordell James. Okay, Cornell, I'm assuming you're going to say something now that I really got to disagree with. I think you're trying to say that, look, Islam was on his back, but in round 4, Islam was on the back of Volkanovski, but Volkanovski was throwing punches, and therefore Volkanovski's being the aggressor. He should win. No, I totally disagree with you, okay? Totally disagree with you. 100% Disagree. Let me tell you why, okay? Those punches are worth nothing. I could literally take thousands of those punches and walk away and have a coffee and write you a poem if you like. Like, I'm totally here. Those punches equal 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 times 0. It gives you nothing. You're basically saying now that if somebody takes my back, I could just kind of throw a few jabs and I'm going to be awarded the win. It's an absurdity. It's an absurdity. Because then you're telling fighters, hey, whenever somebody takes your back, don't worry about it. Just kind of like hold the gorilla grip on his glove. By the way, the referee warned Volkanovski, I think, for putting his fingers in the glove. I'm not sure, but that's the gist I got when I watched it the first time live. The referee kind of stopped them and he was like, hey, like, don't grab inside the glove. So these fighters are not going to hang on to that glove as best they can, and then they're just going to throw a couple of jabs and, hey, that's an absurd idea, okay? Now, don't forget, the round ended and they let Volkanovski out of the back control. What if there were no rounds? What if these guys were fighting and it's like the old school fights? Fight to the end. Fight to the end, and we won't interfere. You two guys fight, and whoever gets knocked out or subbed, well, you're the loser. What do you think would happen? You think those punches would mean anything? No, not at all. They're just cosmetic. They're just to make the fans cheer, because Volk has no other option. He doesn't have an ability to escape here. He's completely locked in. So he's using something that's just... And I'm not saying this to put the guy down. He's a brilliant fighter. He was just cornered. He was between a rock and a hard place. Had no hope of escaping, it seemed. And he was like, look, I'm just going to use what I have left. And it was nothing. It's nothing to score. It doesn't score any points, okay? 0 plus 0 doesn't score any points. In my opinion, guys, this is how I see it. You guys can disagree, but I'd much rather be on your back, because I'll tell you something. Those punches, they're going to amount nothing. Once I choke you out, I win, you know? But the dominant position can't be ignored. What's your take? What would it take to get you in my corner, coach? That's from Bread Collector. Well, Bread Collector, you're going to have to collect a lot of bread, my friend. Lots and lots of bread. Coach, please rewatch round 3. Islam outstruck him numerically. Significant strikes, and he had bigger shots. That's from Alulo. I would have to rewatch round 3, but look, I did rewatch it at one point. You're right, but again, it's not quantitative like that. You know, man, I would love to watch round 3 right now, but I won't take us on a tangent that takes so much time. I'll rewatch it later. You're right. Round 3 was a hard one to call, but I remember rewatching it again and giving it to Volk. And that's as generous as I can be, because when I was watching it live, for me, it was a draw round. It was a draw round. Celebrate your first super chat from Alulo. Thank you, Alulo. Appreciate that. Islam didn't beat Volk on the ground. JF, you muppet, he did nothing. Well, I don't know who JF is, but no, he did beat him on the ground. Look, when you take somebody's back, that's significant. Okay, now it's a 5-round fight. We got to let you up. I think, you know what would be fair? Let me tell you what's a fair fight. If in round 4 you have my back and the fight ends and we go back to our stools, we should start round 5 with you on my back. Why should the state involve themselves in the fight? I had your back. We have 25 minutes to fight. Why should you be allowed back up on your feet? Imagine how much jiu-jitsu fighters would start winning. How many times has a guy been on the ground and saved by the end of the round? He got put in an inferior position. The jiu-jitsu grappler finally gets him where he wants. And no, stop. The state is going to interfere. We're going to stand you guys back up to your feet. Well, of course, that heavily favors the striker. It heavily favors the wrestler, because he gets a chance to take you down again and go to his dominant position. It heavily disfavors the guy who wants to work on the ground, because we're constantly interrupting your position. Let's reverse it. Let's reverse everything. Let's do a thought experiment. Imagine fights start on the ground. I know it's ridiculous. I totally understand. It's totally ridiculous. But imagine we have to start on our knees and we have to... No, that's even more ridiculous. Let's just say We flip a coin and one guy has to play guard and we start on the ground. And then as you're fighting, you have to work your way back up to your feet and whatever. And then, every time the round ends, we start you back down on the ground. Grapplers would get more subs. Statistically, everything would go up for the grapplers. Everything, every metric would now move in the positive direction for grappling. Why? You're constantly being put on the ground. The state is interfering. The government is interfering. He's coming in here and saying, look, we deem it that the fight should be going back on the ground. Of course, grapplers now, everybody would start grappling more. Everybody would be like, hey, it pays the bills to grapple. So look, if you're going to say he did nothing with it, well, Volk didn't escape. And the state allowed him to start where he fights best, on his feet. Okay, so it heavily, heavily disfavors the guy who has the back. The fact that we have to restart on the feet. You guys get my point, I'm sure. Which 45er challenges Volk? That's from Viking. Viking, it's obvious now. Right? Yair Rodriguez put on an incredible performance against Josh Emmett. This is an incredible fight, guys. Yair showed great maturity in his last fight, and he showed that his skills are championship level, of course. I'll do a breakdown when they meet up, because I'm sure they're going to meet up next. Volk versus Yair. This is going to be an incredible matchup. But that's for another episode. Missed the super chat. All right, here. No, I don't think I did. No, I think we're good on the super chats. Hi, Coach. Have you read The Impossible State by Wael Halak? Guys, we're just doing the fight right now. Simply the fight. Why Islam didn't manage to submit Volk when he had his back. That's from Ave123. Guys, it's not always easy to get a sub on the back. I think usually it has to be done in a dynamic fashion. As you're taking the back and the guy's trying to avoid the back take, you got to slip that choke in. It's actually pretty tough once you cement the back and your opponent gets the 2-on-1. Guys, I just released Back Escapes Made Easy, Advanced Basics, Volume 14. Guys, I'm telling you, it's not easy to escape the back, but it's also not easy to choke the guy when you have his back, especially with those MMA gloves, because they make such a great grip. Guys, check in the description for 50% discount on the Jiu-Jitsu Club videos. Okay, check it in the description of this video. Get Advanced Basics, Back Escapes Made Easy. It's a brilliant video. I just released it now, and I think you guys are going to absolutely love it. It's very difficult to get your glove free, maintain the control. Things are sweaty. It's not that easy. I like to put the choke in while I'm taking the back, because as soon as you take the back, the guy's now fully aware of your arm, and he reacts a 2-on-1, and he's going to hold it with his life, and it just becomes complicated. Now, there are many things you can do. I just think simply Islam Makhachev doesn't have the experience on the back. Because the back is a whole other animal. He's great at taking people down. He's great at pinning people. He's great at katakatami, armbar, but back control, it's not easy, guys. I'm not saying he's highly experienced. He's just not at that level where it's easy to do. Now, look, Marcelo Garcia has like 2 MMA fights, and he's one of the best finishers in history of jiu-jitsu. One of his fights he lost, he was on the guy's back for literally like 10 minutes, and he couldn't finish him. It's just not that easy. It's just not that easy because MMA guys are strong. They're holding that arm with their life. The glove is there, so it makes for a very, very strong grip. That's why I like rear naked chokes in an MMA scenario. You have to do it dynamically, meaning as I'm taking the back, I have to slip my arm in immediately. There's a small window as you transition, and it's a difficult thing to do. It's not easy. Even the best guys don't get it. Okay, even the best guys. Now, with that said, sometimes you land a 1-2, you knock the guy down, he blinked for a second, and you slip that arm in, and it's looked super easy. Okay, that happens too very often. Another very common scenario is guys with really, really long arms. They'll get a rear naked choke almost every time. Case in point, Charles Oliveira. He's got really long, lanky arms, Because it doesn't matter if you defend with your chin down, shoulders up. It doesn't matter. His arm is so long. It's like hanging you. It's like throwing a lasso from very far away. It's just he has more reach. He can get a full control, a deeper control around his arms. He can get his arms in deeper when he wraps his arms around his own arms. There's just so many advantages to having long arms when it comes to rear naked choke. Hey, coach, why do you think Islam chose to take the back rather than go onto mount and finish him there? That's from Uchila. I think he did the right choice. Going to the back. If he tried to go to mount, I think Volk would have got out. Volk was defending in a way that exposed his back and not mount. So I think Islam did the right choice there. It's not always easy, guys, to mount. It's not that easy. Okay, especially in MMA, because wrestlers, when people are wrestling in MMA, they often want to go to 4 points. 4 points is when your hands and feet are on the ground. And they want to put their hips and shoulder up against the fence so they could use the fence to kind of stand back up. So they use the fence to withstand any weight you're trying to put on them. Okay, we call that wall walking. Sometimes, you use the fence. You prop yourself up against the fence. So no matter how much weight I put on you, the fence is carrying us. Okay, but that exposes the back. I respect your saying, but fights are judged based on effing grappling, effing aggressiveness. Islam did not effing grapple, and Volk had 2/3 of the above. Simply being in dominant position shouldn't award round. That's from Cornell James. Cornell, thank you very much for your generous super chat, first of all. You're a gentleman and a scholar. But I'm going to have to respectfully disagree. Okay? You're saying, look, the rule set, first of all, the rule set is damage. Damage first. Rewatch the fight. Who landed the hardest shots? Up until round, if you count the first 4 rounds, I think Makhachev landed the hardest shots. It was only in round 5 that Volk really, I think, hurt Islam. Prior to that, I don't think he ever really hurt him. Watch every single time that he connected. In round 1, the first big shot came from Volk. Volk switched stance, threw a left down the middle, and tagged Islam Makhachev right on the button. Islam popped back. He circled. He got popped. It was clean. I had Volk winning the round 1. When I was doing the watch party, I was like, guys, I have Volk ahead. Islam came back to catch Volk with a left. He caught Volk with a powerful left, dropped him down to one knee, and took him down. He has the damage. He had landed a harder shot. And he had the grappling. Round 1 in the books for Islam. Even though it was still a close round. Okay? I don't think damage went on Volk's side. I don't think so. I think in the first 4 rounds, guys, I'm saying the first 4 rounds because I completely 100% yield round 5. Round 5 was Volk's round, no doubt. I don't disagree in the least. I don't think anybody could watch that round and say Islam won that round. I'm not discounting it. I'm telling you guys, I'm giving it 100% win. Round 5 was a 100% win for Volkanovski. I'm only interested in the first 4 because that's the ones that are more controversial. You're telling me, so what? He had his back. Yes, having his back. Having his back. There's no greater there's nowhere else for me to go that's higher. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm on home base. You're like, oh, but you didn't touch first base. No, I did first base. That was a while back. I'm at the best position. There's no higher up to graduate to. The back control is the most dominant control in all of positions. And I'm not getting into the controversy of is back control or top mount better? No, they're equally good. Or is back slightly better? There's a big controversy in fighting. We argue about it all the time. I'm not going to get into that. Let's call it equal for now. Any type of mount, whether it's back mount or front mount, you can't transition to a higher position. So what do you want Islam to do? Now, all he's going to do now is try to attack the neck. And he did. He actively tried to attack the neck. He worked the neck. He controlled Volkanovski in such a way that it would be crazy to say Volk is winning. It'd be crazy. It would be absolutely insane. It's an insane thing to do. And don't tell me those punches from the back mean anything. Guys, if you can hit me with an attack 1,000 times and you have 0 effect on me, you're not doing any damage. Okay, so it's just not a... I like Volk. I love Volk. Guys, don't get me wrong. I love Volk. And I think he was doing it to rowdy up the crowd. And He's just a perpetual motion machine. He's wild and crazy, man. He's wild and crazy. And I love that about him. It was entertaining. But no, there's zero damage from those punches. Literally, it's 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0. There's literally no damage happening. You can even see Islam Makhachev was laughing, kind of smiling. At one point, he was kind of laughing and smiling. He's like, yeah, you can keep jabbing at me, so what? Islam in the first 4 did more damage, and he had better control. By and large, he won the first 4. Okay, he won the fight. 3 out of the first 4. Volk won round 5, no doubt. Guys, I played the audio of Volk after round 3. I don't know if were you guys able to hear that? Were you guys able to get a clear vocal on what he said? He said, I lost the first 2. I think there was a question mark. I think it's, I lost the first 2, question mark. He's asking his coaches. And then his coaches said, pardon? And he says, Volk replies, did I lose the first 2? Like, in his mind, he wasn't confident. Now, Eugene Behrman, he gave him a beautiful reply. He said, he didn't acknowledge whether he lost or not. He said, you're going to win the next 3. Yeah, you're right. Okay. The other coach agreed. Yeah, you're going to win the next 3. Guys, what was the morale in that corner? The morale in that corner was, look, it's really, really close, but we're not confident we won that round. Okay, so you can't just say it was a blowout, is what I'm trying to tell you. It was very controversial. I get it. The scoring system is to blame. It says unanimous decision, which I ultimately agree with, but it's not it wasn't an easy win. It was a razor-thin competition. It was super competitive. The scoring system is not giving us the true story. The scoring system is deeply flawed. I get it. It doesn't paint us the picture. Like, if you woke up the next day and you hadn't watched the fight and you saw a unanimous decision, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's what I expected. And you roll back to bed and you think, oh, the fight went exactly like I expected. No. The result, the words unanimous decision, don't do justice to what happened in that fight. It was an extremely close fight. But I could tell you, in my opinion, Volk knew he had lost the first 2 rounds. I think he knew that. The third round was better. He sat down and he said, that one was better? They're like, yeah, that one was much better. I lost the first 2. What? Pardon? Did I lose the first 2? Even Volk is not sure. So you can't come on here on this channel and start posting, hey, for sure Volk won. No. There's no for sure here. There's no for sure. Okay, it was a controversial, close fight. It wasn't a blowout win for either man. If you're asking me my opinion, that's all it is, just my opinion. I think after watching it, Islam won. And the big controversy is because Islam was shooting. He slipped. It wasn't a knockdown. He slipped. Watch the replay. The punch never landed. The judges got it right. Believe it or not, they got it right. Volk in round 2 threw a big punch. The crowd roared. At the same time, it was a coincidence. And I'm using that literally, 2 incidences happening at the same time. Coincidence, 1 incident here, 1 incident there. They were happening at the same time. And it gave off the illusion that Islam got knocked down. He didn't get knocked down. He took a shot. When he took a shot, he slipped. The punch never made contact at all. He gets Volk down to the ground and they wrestle, and the crowd went berserk because they thought Volk had knocked him down. He didn't. Okay, and we can't let the crowd influence and decide for us whether it was a knockdown or a slip. We have to look objectively and be fair to both these guys. There was no knockdown in round 2 by Volk. Even Volk knew it. Volk knew he didn't make contact. Because why would he go back why would he go back in his corner and say, hey, I lost the first 2? If you knock a guy down in the second round, you're like, hey, I'm winning this round, man. I just knocked you down. He knew he didn't make contact. The crowd was roaring because everything. Here's the other thing that's unfair, okay? Everything Volk does, the crowd roars. Everything Makhachev does, the crowd is silent. They don't care. They're hissing at him. They're booing at him. Go back and watch that fight. Watch when Islam Makhachev comes out. They're booing him, man. Listen, I love Australia. I've been to Australia. It's a beautiful country, beautiful people. I love them, but they're a bit crazy. Okay, and I say that with all due respect. I have lots of Australian friends, and I think they would be happy to tell you, yeah, he's right. We're a little nuts now. And I say this because I tell my Australian friends they're crazy because one time I was watching a documentary on the 10 most dangerous animals in the world, the 10 most dangerous predators in the world, and like 8 of them were in Australia. They have like a jellyfish that's like the size of the head of a pin that can kill you. If it touches you, it kills you. And I always tell them, why do you guys want to live here? It's so dangerous. I remember one time we had a fight in Australia, and I sent out the fighter, and the coach 2 weeks before to get acclimated. And I came like just a few days before the fight. And the coach and fighter were jogging on the beach on the second day. And the coach got bit by a spider. He's just jogging on the beach, got bit by a spider. His foot ballooned up like 3 times its size. They had to bring him to the emergency. They saved him. They saved his foot. And I was like, what? Where on earth are we? I hid in my hotel room. I was too scared to go outside. Like, how many predators is there in this country? Every spider, every snake, every bat, every insect that's dangerous in the world, it lives in Australia. Now, it's not the most hospitable area, is what I'm trying to say. But the people are great. But they didn't love Islam Makhachev. That's the truth. They didn't show him any love. They booed him. Even when they announced him as the winner, they booed him. That's why I have so much respect and admiration for Volk as a human being. Not just as a fighter. As a fighter, he's aces all around. But as a human being, he's even greater. Why? He waved them down. He told them, no, boo. He went and he praised Islam. He congratulated Islam. He thanked Islam. He said, look, I'm going to get better from this. He's such a stellar human being. He showed so much class. And the Australians are great people. But they're really loyal to themselves. They're really loyal to each other. I get it. It's a brotherhood. He's coming from another part of the world. We want to kick his ass. This is our home. I get it. But it influences a lot of the viewers. You guys are watching the fight. You're hearing them roar. You're hearing them cheer. It looks like Rocky versus the bad guy. It's like Rocky versus what's his name? The Russian guy. What was his name? Drago. Which, by the way, I wanted originally Drago to be George St. Pierre's nickname. His other coach wanted to call him Rush. No, I'm like, no, we have to put George Drago St. Pierre. We have to pass him off as a Russian. Because I was like, he's exactly like the guy in Rocky 4, man. He's exactly, no, we're going to call him Rush. And they switched to Rush. But it could have been Drago, guys. His nickname could have been Drago. Is that another super chat I missed? Oh, boy. Guys, I'm only doing questions on the fight, guys. Please, only questions on the fight. Thoughts on Dan Hooker calling Islam a cheating you-know-what and saying he done IVs with no evidence. Classless. Volk was humbled, but his team letting him down. That's from James Cerrone. Volk was humble. Oh, okay. Volk was humble, but his team letting him down. I didn't hear those comments, but look, if he said that, look, you have to produce proof. Now, do fighters do IV? I think they do. I think it's very hard to test for. I think fighters do it, but most of them are scared to get caught, etc. Do they do it? I don't know, guys. I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. Now, why would Dan Hooker say he does IV? Like he has to produce evidence. Fighters call each other out for cheating all the time. I understand it. Okay, and sometimes I get hooked into that, which I try to avoid, but sometimes I also get hooked into it. You got to produce evidence. You can't just blame somebody. And it's especially if you're gonna be vile about it. If you're gonna start insulting the guy, I don't find it smart. I respect your saying, but fights are judged based on... Okay, no, we did that one. Okay, good. All right, guys, we good. Who has the upper hand in a rematch between Volk and Islam? Guys, forgive me. I'm on the tail end of a head cold, and my sinuses are still out of whack. Who has the upper hand in a rematch between Volk and Islam? I would say Islam. Why? 5-round experience, and not 5-round experience with anybody. 5-round experience with another world-class athlete. It's a whole other can of worms. It's a new dimension to fighting, and I think Islam was introduced to it. Guys, I want you guys to think about this. Imagine in the pre-fight analysis. Picture this, okay? Imagine in the pre-fight analysis, I told you this. I told you guys, I predict in round 5 that Islam Makhachev will attempt a takedown, get fully locked in a body lock, and Volk is going to use a Yoko Sumageshi to counter the takedown. Even though he's deep into the clutches of Islam Makhachev, he's going to hit heights and escape, get back to his feet, pour it on Makhachev. Makhachev is going to shoot and pull guard. That's my prediction for the fight. And Makhachev is going to lay on his back for the last minute or two, and Volk is just going to pound on him. You guys will all go and click unsubscribe. Click. You'll be like, this guy's insane. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's drunk, and he's lost his mind. That's what you all would tell me. But if you go watch that fight, and a lot of you are like, no, that didn't happen, go rewatch the fight. Islam Makhachev in round 5 pulls guard. He shoots, he misses, he gets sprawled on, he rolls to his back. Why? He got tagged. He got tagged earlier. Guys, I'm going to rewatch it now. Just because I'm so amazed. Guys, you never know what's going to happen in a fight. I want to double check and rewatch it and describe it accurately to you. Guys, you never know what's going to happen in a fight. I say it all the time. These things are so hard to call or predict. It's such an incredibly difficult thing. Okay, so here we are. Here's where we're at 1:14 left in the fight. Okay, Volkanovski threw a right hand, tagged Islam Makhachev. At the same time, Islam was shooting. He tagged him. Islam falls down into a missed shot. He just got tagged. We're at 1:08 left. Okay, Volkanovski's kind of circling towards the back, just like you do when somebody misses a shot. And Islam pulls guard. He rolls to his back. Guys, if somebody came out and predicted that, you'd be like, that's insane. Islam Makhachev pull guard. I don't care how badly discombobulated he is. He's just going to stay turtled up. Wrestlers don't pull guard. He's going to stay turtled up and he's going to try to fight the hands. He's going to try to wall walk. No, he pull guard. Why? Because he does jiu-jitsu. He works off his back and he's like, hey, the safest place for me to go right now is guard. We've never seen him do it in any of his other fights. Doesn't mean it's not in his arsenal. It's not in his game. It doesn't mean it's not in his arsenal. We've never seen Volkanovski do Yoko Sumageshi, but it blew my mind when he did it. Guys, it blew my mind when he did it. And I got to give credit to Craig Jones, man. He taught him something that's highly, highly difficult to do. And it worked. Volkanovski used it in the appropriate time, and he did it beautifully. Now, it's a matter of time before the next generation of fighters watch that, and they all start doing it. They all start adopting it. But I think it's the first time it ever happened in the octagon, ever. Somebody used Yoko Sumageshi. Now, when I teach it, I can tell guys, hey, well, Volkanovski used it at Islam Makhachev because I do it all the time in the gym. But sometimes people are like, hey, that's a weird move. It's a staple maneuver. You just don't see it often. Why? People don't know about it. Okay, guys, what else we got here? Islam was not himself. Anybody who knows Islam knows that. I noticed something was off when he made his walk to the ring. I called it before they even fought. When Islam is 100%, he will finish. That's from Dominic Anderson. Look, I got to disagree. Look, he's fighting in Australia, and I think that might have a little bit to do with why he looked tired late in round 5. I think Volk punched him in the head, and that had a lot to do with it too, but if you guys ever travel to Australia, it's quite a journey, man. You're literally living on the other side of the planet. Your whole world is turned upside down. Your circadian rhythm is turned upside down. I personally would never have agreed to a title fight in Australia. Never. If I couldn't get out of it, I would go 1 month before and acclimate to Australia. It's such a, unless I was an Australian champion, I would never fight an Australian world title. Not because I don't love Australia and all that. It does scare the hell out of me. But in terms of predators and the animal life, all out there, for me, it's too much. But in terms of logistics, if you want to perform at your best and you're not acclimated to the Australian rhythm of life, it could really throw you off. So you could be right about that. But I don't want to blame the result on that. He fought hard. He fought well. We just never seen him push to this level. I think that's really more what it is. Okay, it's really more about what it is. Islam has never had such a hard opponent. And we've seen new elements to his game. And a lot of it made him look human. You just never seen him look human before. Who wins the rematch in your opinion? I would go Islam. I think he learned a lot from it. He's going to grow from it. And he got a taste of what it is to do hard 5 rounds with a champion like that. So he has a lot more to improve. Miss Super Chat. Coach, why does the UFC have a no time limit match? I think you're asking, that's from Vishvat. I think you're asking, why doesn't the UFC have a no time limit match? Because I don't think anybody in the world outside of Japan would ever sanction that. Okay, so one time there was a fight that was sanctioned. Well, actually, there's no commission in Japan. Royce Gracie fought Sakuraba. No end to the rounds. So there was rounds, but infinite amount of rounds. Infinite amount. They fought for over an hour, and then the Gracies threw in the towel. Royce was getting leg kicked, and he couldn't continue. Unlimited rounds. Think about this. First time ever in the history of professional fighting. All the other fights before that were Brazilian slash underground fights. Yeah, they were professional fights, but it's before it was mainstream. And it was not as well organized. It's just basically two guys fighting, no time limit. This is old Vale Tudo days. Okay, literally, word Vale Tudo means anything goes. Vale Tudo, everything goes. And they would fight all the way till somebody quits. You don't see that in the modern mixed martial arts, except that one fight where the Gracies used, their pull to have a match with Sakuraba with unlimited rounds. Why doesn't the UFC do that? No, I don't think no commission in the world would allow it outside of Japan. I think the only place they could do it would be Japan. Now, if they did it, they'd have to do it on a regular basis, and I think it would throw off their whole sport. It could throw off their entire sport. I think if you propose that Dana White, he wouldn't even be interested in trying to work out the logistics. He'd be like, that's crazy. Our system is perfectly fine. I think what they should do is just count everything as one round. Yes, have them fight for rounds. Have them fight for 3 rounds, 5 rounds if it's a title fight. But count everything as one round. 10-point must system, and it's all one round. Don't add rounds 1 plus round 2 plus round 3, whatever. That math doesn't do justice to the fight. And when you do that, you get guys who try to bank in 3 rounds and then fight securely the rest of the fight. You don't want that. You want fighters to fight the entire way. And I think the scoring system has to be changed. How do you feel about Armin Tsakirian in a rematch with Islam? First fight was very competitive, looked 50-50, and then Armin accepted on 9 days' notice. That's from Art Grill. Look, I think Islam beats him. Armin is great. He's a great fighter, but I think Islam beats him. He's going to have the striking advantage, and he'll even have a slight wrestling advantage, but he'll eventually outstrike Armin. Thanks for spending time with us, Coach. Missed the start of the stream due to work. That's from JJ. JJ, this is work. This is your work, my friend. Thank you, JJ. Thank you for that super chat. Very sweet of you. Okay, guys, where else? We're an hour, 24 minutes, man. I can't believe it. I feel like we just started the stream. Volk was crying. No. Volk took it like a man. Volk is a true champion. If he has a title or not, he's a champion. The man took on an incredibly huge challenge, moving up a weight class to fight a fighter who at that time, when he accepted the fight, seemed to have 0 blemishes. Okay. His fights were one-sided mostly. The vast majority of his fights were one-sided. Do you think if Islam wrestled more and right away he could have finished Volk? That's from Munayo. No, I don't think so. Listen, Volk is not an easy guy to take down. Guys, it's true. When a fighter is shorter, they're harder to take down. It's harder to get under their hips. Whether you're using a judo throw or you're trying to double leg the guy, it's just really hard to get that low. Okay, so it's not easy to take Volk down. Absolutely not. And he's obviously a very competent wrestler. Who do you think would win, Islam or Fazayev? That's from Farhan. That's an interesting fight. Very interesting fight, guys. That's a really tough one to call. Very tough one to call. Why Volk doesn't fight in lightweight? That's from Kutay. He could. Guys, I'm telling you, he could beat so many. Think about it. Nobody could do what Volk did against Islam Makhachev. That includes the former UFC champion, Charles Oliveira. That includes former UFC champion, Charles Oliveira. If you put Volk and Oliveira in a fight, I would pick Volk. I know it sounds crazy. A lot of people are going to give me heat for this. If it's a 5-round fight, I pick Volk. Islam versus Dustin Poirier, question mark. That's from Borch. I think that could be a great fight, sure, but I think really it's Dariush's turn. I think Dariush is probably next up in line. Poirier also. Poirier's had title fights before. I think it could be a great matchup as well. I'm happy to see either, but I think I really foremost want to see Dariush get his title shot because he brings such a new challenge to the table. Something we haven't seen. Khabib smashes Volk, coach. That's from Munayo. Look, if you put Khabib and Volk in the fight, I would pick Khabib and I would give it like a 60. No, I would give it 70-30 Khabib. 70-30. I'll tell you why, okay? Let me tell you guys why. Khabib shoots to his knees from a distance. You guys remember when he fought McGregor? He circled, he shot from a distance. McGregor threw that knee and he shot and he grabbed that leg from a distance. He was in that same position with McGregor that Islam was with Volk. It's called a crackdown position, okay? Khabib is another level in that position. I'm not saying he could finish Volk easily all the time, this and that, and I'm not saying that Volk and McGregor's wrestling is comparable. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that in that position, remember that position where he shot in on McGregor, the first takedown, when his head was to the outside? He's like in a crackdown position. Khabib's at another level in that position, and I think he easily gets to that position. Remember when he shot on Ala Quinta? He grabs the ankle, pressures the knee. That shot that he has, Islam doesn't have in his repertoire. Islam has never showed it. It might be in his repertoire. He didn't use it on Volk. Khabib has it in his repertoire. He's used it multiple times. He's super confident in doing it. He's done it repeatedly in fights. That maneuver is very good against shorter fighters because you're shooting so low. It doesn't matter that they're short. You're shooting below the knee. Khabib shoots below the knee. There's very few guys in MMA that did it at the highest level. The only guy I can think of right now is Sakuraba. Sakuraba actually famously did it on Igor Vovchanchin. I'm not going to go back in the history of fighting, but Igor Vovchanchin was one of the biggest punchers ever. Dangerous guy. He beat Mark Kerr twice. And both times he was the underdog. If you guys don't know Mark Kerr was a mountain of muscle. Picture the biggest, strongest guy ever seen. Okay, before I'm forgetting his name now. WWF wrestler who went to UFC. The Beast. I'm jacked and I'm white. Deal with it. Brock Lesnar, man. Brock Lesnar. Of course, Brock Lesnar. Slightly smaller than Brock, maybe. Yeah, no, smaller than Brock, but he was the first smashing machine, guys. The first guy we called smashing machine was Mark Kerr. He was a destroyer. Vovchanchin knocked him out twice. Stopped him twice. He fights Sakuraba. Sakuraba, long story short, shoots that low single that Khabib does. Then he ends up quitting because he had fought an hour. It was the same night he fought Hoist. Anyways, too much history, guys. There's too much history to unpack. I'm not going to do it now. But that low single that Khabib has, that Makhachev doesn't, would make a massive difference. I guarantee you Khabib gets it to the ground regularly. And 3 out of the 5 rounds easily. That low single that Khabib shoots is deadly. Not many guys can do it. I can't even think of another guy that does it at the highest levels in UFC, in MMA. I can't think of another guy who shoots that shot. Only Khabib has it in his repertoire, and he does it consistently over and over again. And if you have that in your arsenal, it doesn't matter the guy's short. It doesn't make a difference. You could be tall, short, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. Now, when you shoot a double, it makes a difference. How tall the guy is, how short the guy is. When you shoot a single, when you shoot a high crotch, these things make a difference. Not when you shoot a low single, man. When you shoot a low single, I don't care how tall you are. It makes no relevant difference whatsoever. Khabib has more layers to his game than Makhachev. You guys might be able to see the difference, but believe me, if you train for 20, if you're deep in the game, these are glaring differences. They are glaring differences. Now, if you put Makhachev and Islam together, Khabib and Islam together in sparring, it might look 50-50 and they're close and it's really comparable. They're very similar and it's competitive. Then you give them the same opponent. Khabib crushes the guy and Islam has a challenging fight. But you're like, hey, when Islam and Khabib were together, it looked even. Yes, because it's a stylistical issue. Khabib would do a lot better against a Volk than an Islam Makhachev. If you asked me that before the fight, I would tell you this. I would tell you, yeah, Khabib will do better. Actually, somebody did ask me that. They said, is Islam at Khabib's level? I was like, no. Khabib has more layers to his game. He does what everything Makhachev does, but at a higher level, at a higher intensity. And he has better chain wrestling. He has more layers, guys. Here's the thing. They both have one thing in common. Islam and Khabib have one thing in common. When they get hit, they don't react well. They give like these weird herky-jerky... I love these two guys, don't get me wrong. When they get tagged, they give these weird herky-jerky type spastic reactions that make the shot that they got hit with, look worse. It looks like they got damaged. They're not at ease with getting hit necessarily. Their reactions when they get hit are a bit weird. They're not mechanically normal. But I've never seen Khabib really get hurt. And every time even McGregor hit him with that left hand, guys, try to think about this for a second. McGregor has flattened human beings with his left hand. Flattened. I'm telling you, flattened. You all know it. Human beings with that left hand. When he hit Khabib with it, it was just a normal guy hitting me. Khabib would turn around, spit on the octagon, and just wipe his nose. It was nothing to him. Volk, a guy who hasn't knocked anybody out in a long time, every time he hit Makhachev reacted in a way that looked like he got touched. He got hurt. That wasn't nothing. It was something. It was significant. You hurt him. You hurt Makhachev. On the other hand, you see Islam. On the other hand, you see Khabib getting hit with a missile by McGregor and just takes it and just whatever. I'll just adjust my shorts and he's just like, it's just another day. Khabib is more robust. He has a better chin. Even though when they both get hit, they have these weird herky-jerky. I remember when Dustin tagged Khabib. I was in Abu Dhabi for that. I was actually watching it with Makhachev. Me and Makhachev were sitting at the same table watching the fight. Makhachev had just fought. I was there for another fighter, and we're sitting down watching Khabib main event against Poirier. We're in the tent outside of the stadium, and we're watching Khabib fight live. And Khabib gets hit, and he gave that herky-jerky, and none of us were worried. Everybody thought, Khabib's hurt. He's not hurt. He wasn't hurt at all. Okay? He just gives these weird reactions when he gets hit. He's not hurt. Khabib's chin is incredible. What I'm trying to say, guys, is Khabib's chin is incredible, and Islam's, it's not great. It's good, but it's not like Khabib's. Nothing like Khabib's. Does GSP versus Khabib look similar to Volk versus Islam? That's from Naked McGregor. No, I wouldn't say. It's a very different look. Completely different. Guys, thank you very much for the super chats. Kufa Yakun, thank you very much. Slam Coach, if you were to coach Islam in a rematch against Volk, what would you do to improve Islam's chances? Also, how was Volk able to eat those strikes and keep going? That's from Talal. Guys, I would adjust a lot of his punching mechanics. His punching mechanics are not perfect. Okay, they're far from perfect. I would adjust a lot of his ability to jab and his pivoting. His check hook was good. Finishing with a kick when Volk moves back. I would adjust his tie plum so he can elbow off the tie plum. I would use a few key entries that here's the problem. Okay, when Volk was changing stances on him, Volk was blitzing him and changing stances, and Islam didn't know how to react to that. He didn't have a good answer. I would give him a good answer to that. I would give him 2-3, let him experiment with it in sparring, see which one he's comfortable with. I would take away Volk's shifting ability. Volk is a good shifter. Shifting means like when you move forward, but you switch stances at the same time. Okay. Volk did that repeatedly in round 1. Volk did so good in the first 2 minutes in round 1 that I thought he could run away with it because Islam was not reacting well to the shifting. I would adjust a lot of things. Like I would go through it with a fine-tooth comb. I think his blocking ability, Islam Makhachev's blocking ability is lacking. Like there's a lot of things that can be really fixed that can make a massive difference. He's starting to become predictable. If he doesn't adjust his game, future fighters will take over. He's starting to become predictable. Especially when you look human like that in round 5. Now fighters are pumped now. They all think hey, the limit is here. We just got to push through it. Whereas when you never look human, people are like, hey, where's the limit? Where is it even? Where? Like your imagination runs wild. Maybe this guy's limit is far beyond what anybody in the division. But now that we saw your limit, we know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We know there's an oasis. So you're gonna swim harder. You're gonna push further. You're gonna dig deeper. Why? Because you believe that there's a finish line. Coach, how the hell all these knees didn't slow Volk? That's from Amir. Look, Volk is a beast. I would have worked the knees, but also knees to the head, and he has to elbow. He has to elbow off that tight plum. You're right. Islam caught him with a beautiful knee. Even at one point, Volk blitzed Islam, and Islam caught him with a spear knee at a distance. They would have slowed down a lot of guys, but Volk is a beast, man. He ate it. He even ate a partial head kick during the fight. Just kept going, man. Volk is a monster. He's a monster. Please, Coach, scroll up for my super chat. That's from Mr. Cerrone. Mr. Cerrone. Okay, I'm going to keep scrolling, but I'm going to do this super chat here from Malhab. Brian Ortega must feel better about not being able to finish that guillotine on Alexander after watching Makhachev not get a submission on him also. Yeah, look, Volk is not easy to sub, man. He's a beast. And that guillotine was deep by Ortega, very deep, and he got out of it. He's no easy guy. He's no easy guy to sub. Okay, James Cerrone says, what's the highest level MMA fight in history? Any others? Also, Alex is on the Ariel podcast right now saying he confidently won rounds 2 and 3 and 5. Thoughts on what you think he sees in those rounds? Guys, he's not confident he won round 2. Rewatch what he says after round 3. Rewatch the fight. Go to round 3. He tells his corner, I lost the first 2. He wasn't confident in the first 2. Okay, maybe now after rewatching it, the emotion settled. He thinks he won the first 2. I don't think he did. But still, I can understand why people can argue that way. I'm not saying it's out of realm of possibility. No. It was a very close fight. Incredibly close fight. But go back, remind him what he said at round 3. After round 3, he sits on the stool. I played it for you guys, but I don't know how clear it came out. We asked me, what is the highest level fight in MMA history? Wow, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. The 2... Man. Okay, well, I'll tell you something, okay? There's going to be some... I can't say there's one, okay? But there are many that pop into mind. Fedor versus Krokop. When they were both in their prime, they fought each other. BJ Penn versus St. Pierre. When they were both in their prime, they fought each other. Man, there's just too many. Man, you're making my head spin. When you ask me a question like that, it's just my head starts to spin. There's just too many things to consider. It's just too many things to consider. But I would say when BJ Penn fought George or Fedor fought Krokop. And you have to remember, that was when Krokop was in his prime. When Fedor was in his prime. Fedor went heavyweight undefeated. Like, it was a brilliant streak. Not Fedor who fought 2-3 weeks ago. You know, that's not the legendary Fedor that's not Fedor in his prime. That's Fedor far removed from his prime. Man, the highest level fight, very hard to call, guys. It's too much. It's too much of a difficult question. It's just I'd have to go back and with a fine tooth comb. Like it's just, but I would say BJ Penn, Georges St. Pierre, or Fedor versus Krokop. A brilliant time. Considering Islam and Khabib were training partners, does the lack of dominance from Islam impact Khabib's place as GOAT? Discussion left soon. That's from Hueta. No. Khabib is the GOAT of lightweights. There's no question about it. Guys, you can't do what he did and not be the GOAT. Nobody could beat him. Nobody came close to beating him. He had no controversial championship wins. Look, this is Islam's first defense, and it's already controversial. Every single one of Khabib's defenses were slam dunks. Nobody argued for the other side. Nobody. You can't compare the two. He beat everybody convincingly. It doesn't matter what happens to Islam. It doesn't matter if Islam loses 3 in a row. It doesn't affect Khabib at all. So what? Don't forget, if you're training partners and you're competitive, that's because also we know each other. Two guys who train together for so long, we know each other's techniques, we know each other's movements. It becomes stale. That's when sparring becomes stale. So I've trained with some guys so many years that I can't train with him. We just go through the same routine. If I roll with this guy one more time, I'll lose my mind. We do the exact same. Like it becomes stale. Like I'll roll with George once in a blue moon, but we trained together in our youth so many times that it's kind of like become dead in the water for us to train together. Like it's just like we'll train together once in a blue moon. We'll roll for fun. We'll have some fun, but we know each other so well. It's like watching the same movie another time. Like you already watched this movie. Yeah, it's your favorite movie. You watch it, but you can't watch it again. You just put it on the shelf. It's good. The training has become too stale. You understand? We already know what we're gonna do. It's kind of a weird thing. When you're in the practice room, you get to understand that. Okay, so you can't roll with somebody 100,000 times. After that, 100,001 is just too much. You want to roll with someone else. You just want to I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. You know each other's game. It's not because Islam gave Khabib a hard time in the practice room that Islam is as good as Khabib. No, you have to have a common opponent, and you have to go by that result. I'm a new fan. I've heard you say Fedor is the GOAT heavyweight, but I heard Dana say he never fought anyone good and was too scared to come to UFC with lots of money. Please, can you explain why Fedor was the GOAT? That's from James Cerrone. Okay, guys, I'm going to end it on this one. Why was Fedor the GOAT? Well, he did fight a former UFC champion. Okay, so we had Tim Sylvia. He got cut from UFC for doing steroids. He left, and then we had Invicta. Invicta brought Fedor and Tim Sylvia, and they had the mega fight that everybody wanted to see. Tim Sylvia, the UFC champion, versus Fedor. Now, Tim Sylvia, he went on a losing streak after this, okay? Because I think he got off the Flintstones. Let's call it the Flintstones, okay? Because Tim Sylvia was eating the devil's lettuce, as they say. Or is devil's lettuce? I can't remember. But my day, we used to call it the Flintstones. You take your vitamins. And he fought Fedor, and the fight lasted like 20 seconds. Literally 20 seconds. Fedor just pounced on him, pop, 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 like he always does, and knocked him out. Now, why is Fedor the greatest of all time? He beat Krokop when Krokop was at his peak. He destroyed everybody at heavyweight. Heavyweight, think about this, okay? Miocic defended his title twice, and they were already calling him the greatest of all time. Why? Because in heavyweight, 80% of the fights end up in a knockout. Why? Because the heavier the weight you go, the heavier the weight class, the more knockouts there are. The human chin can only take so much punishment. At one point, these guys are hitting so hard that every guy is a knockout puncher in the division. Every single heavyweight in the division, even the guys who don't box, are knockout punchers. So you're the champion of the most volatile weight class. Guys, please, no more super chats. This is the last one. Fedor was champion for, I think he was undefeated for like 10 years. I can't remember how long he was undefeated. It was an insane amount. For the guy to be in the most volatile weight class and knock out people regularly. And he's found himself in trouble, guys. He's been dropped. And he always comes out on top. Guys, you have to go watch his fights. He beat absolutely everybody. Everybody that came from UFC to Japan, he got crushed by Fedor. Mark Coleman wasn't even competition. Randleman almost killed Fedor with a slam that almost broke Fedor's neck. Fedor rolled out of it. I don't know how. Like, he just Granby rolled out of it into a Kimura and won the fight. Like, he constantly beat guys who came from America. He was the greatest. And believe it or not, when he was negotiating with the U.S., like, he was actually supposed to give a seminar. I was in contact with him. I actually have a copy of Fedor's passport. I was flying Fedor down in Canada to give a seminar. I had everything he needed. Like, I was literally in contact with his people. I had literally his passport. I was flying him and his wife because he didn't want to travel without his wife. I was gonna bring Fedor to Canada. Okay, it didn't work out at the end because whatever reason they couldn't bring him in. But like, Fedor was so amazing. Not only did he have a win streak that was unheard of, that's never been even remotely replicated today. He had come from behind wins. Like, he had so many layers to his game. They weren't flukes, his wins. His wins were not flukes. Even when he was hanging by a thread, he's found a way to win. He was an incredible submission artist. He was an incredible puncher. He had incredible conditioning and incredible heart. He seemed to be unfinishable. I'm talking about in the time of his prime, guys. Now, of course, he's been finished now. He's not what he used to be. He's a shadow of himself. Every time we thought he was going to lose, he came out on top. I want to look at Ngannou, okay? Because Ngannou, in my mind, is the second greatest heavyweight of all time. I want to see exactly what we're looking at here. Ngannou, let's see here. 17-3. Okay. He lost to Derek Lewis. He lost to Stipe Miocic. Okay, I remember that. He was a world title fight. Then he went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fight win streak. He won his title from Miocic. Was it? Okay, he beat Miocic. He defended his title once. Yeah. Was Miocic the rematch? He beat Miocic in the rematch. Caught him with a left hook in round 2. He defended his title once. Guys, Fedor. Fedor 40-7. Okay. 40 wins. 40-7. Okay, let's go to his prime. Okay, he beat Tim Sylvia, Andrei Arlovsky. That's another world champion in UFC. He beat another world champion in UFC. Oh, yes, guys. I remember this. What a fight. What a fight. They brought another ex-UFC champion, Andrei Arlovsky. And Andrei Arlovsky was training with Freddie Roach. Freddie Roach talked to me about this fight. Literally, we went over it. Like, Fedor was losing round 1. Andrei Arlovsky runs in with a flying knee, gets knocked out. Bang! Another great example of Fedor not having any fluky wins, guys. Being in deep situations, dangerous situations, and finding a way to get on top. He was an incredible fighter. He beat Tim Sylvia. Okay, Shinya Aoki, that's just like an exhibition bout. Josh Barnett, canceled bout. Gegard Musashi, that's probably exhibition bout, not same weight class. Brett Rogers, of course, that was a Strikeforce. He lost to Verdum, that's a UFC champion. This is when he was fading Antonio Silva, Dan Henderson. These are really bad losses. This is way past his prime. Way past. Okay, then they brought him in Jeff Munson to rebuild his record. Guys, forgive me. Okay, he beat Filopovic, Randleman, Mark Coleman, Gary Goodrich, Fujita. He just had an incredible win streak. Just an absolute incredible win streak. In my opinion, he's the greatest heavyweight of all time. Of course, we can go back and forth on this all day, but I can't help but say he's the GOAT. You have to go back and rewatch his fights. You can't do him justice without watching his fights. Okay, guys, I want to thank you very much all for tuning in. I will see you all in the next episode. Thank you.